In today's lesson, we're going to discuss books and how to get the most information in the most efficient time. So, the first book I want to use as an example would be Freud, The Interpretation of Dreams. Now, this is a book I came across during my college years where I started to realize that you can actually accomplish a lot in the dream state. And I came across this concept from Nikola Tesla, which led me to doing some research, and I found this book. And so when I read this book, I'm already going in with a certain intention, right? Which is, I understand that I have vivid dreams and that I'm able to actually remember a large portion of them in the morning. So I wanted to dive in a little bit deeper to understand, has this been studied? Are there any techniques that I can do to really expound upon this skill or this experience in the dream state? And so when I'm reading this book, I'm not necessarily reading it just to read it, right? I'm looking for very specific things or techniques that will help me to do what I'm already doing at a higher state, right? And the issue that most people have is that we read for quantity instead of quality, right? So you'll see a lot of people who say they read one book a week, 52 books per year, right? Or they read 20 books in the year. And so it sounds good, but what we really want to do, since we're trying to 14x our life, we want to get the key pieces from these books that's going to help elevate us and make us more efficient, right? So when we read, if you're able to really comprehend and take things while you're reading it, then that's great, right? You just read the book as is. You get to a certain point where you find something that's very key, and you may close the book and not pick it up again for a couple years, right? Because you were reading with an intention, right? For the quality, not for the quantity, okay? And so when we actually have a situation where, you know, some people read books and they're like, man, I got to go back and read it again because I missed some of that, right? If that's you, then you want to read a book with a notebook right next to you, right? So whenever you read something that's profound or you feel it's something you can use, just, you know, turn the book over, write down the notes, and then pick the book up again. That way you don't have to go back and forth, which will make you, you know, you're losing time. And remember, we already discussed how important the time is for the journey that we're looking to reach with our 10,000 hours and 14x in our life. And so another book that I want to point out is The Crowd, and it's a study of the popular mind. And this book, the reason I bought this book is because when I'm observing our society, right, we understand that most people think alike, right? Most people think in the same way, which drives many markets. And the markets I'm speaking of is, you know, whether it's stock market, crypto, or what have you, right? It's because the retail investors all react to the same news, whereas the minority investors who are making actually, you know, the real money, they're taking a contrarian approach, right? So if everyone goes right, then you must look to the left to see that there's probably more value there. So with that book, you know, my intention was just understanding the psychology of the human mind and observing people. That way, when I develop a business, it's easier for me to provide something that they need based on, you know, my previous observations, right? And so another aspect now, of course, we have is audiobooks. So if you don't like the idea of just sitting there reading a book because you think maybe you want to multitask, then you just, you know, download an audiobook, put in your headphones. And the good thing about audiobooks is, especially if you listen to it right before bed, then what you just listened to is actually in your mind, right? Your subconscious mind, your conscious mind. So when you go to sleep, that's actually going to be playing in the background, right? So you can actually really obtain a lot more information in that way based on the sound waves, based on how our brain waves work. So if you want to listen to something right before you go to sleep, instead of us, listening to music, which most of us do, and you can, if you're aware of it, you will understand in your sleep, you're hearing the same songs, right? Which is how we remember every song. We can hear a song from 20 years ago and we'll know the full lyrics, right? So remember, we want to switch over now to, if we replace that with audiobooks, then now we're remembering key concepts that we can use on our journey. And so the key point that we're discussing here in this lesson is we want to define problems that we've come across or things we need help with, and then we seek books to solve those problems. We don't want to just buy books for the sake of buying books. Okay, so we list our problems or things that we want to, figure out. Then we type that in and we can say even, books that help with X, or, what are the top 10 books for Y, right? And so once we get that list of books, then you want to really actually read the reviews, see the people who are like, wow, this book really changed my life, or this is exactly what I was looking for, right? And then now when you get the book, you're already ahead of the curve because you already know what you're looking for. And now you just have to read the book and figure out what page that is on, essentially, right? And again, another example is The 4-Hour Workweek by Timothy Ferriss. I read that book a few years ago, maybe 5 to 6 years ago. My older brother mentioned Timothy Ferriss. I've never heard of him at the time. And so I looked up The 4-Hour Workweek, and that was exactly what I needed. And so when I read the book, again, I was looking for something very specific because I knew that I wanted to live, outside of the US. I'm here in Bali. And so this book was kind of like exactly what I needed to figure out, the concept of reverse engineering came from this book, as well as other things to be very efficient, right? And so once I found, it was pretty much when I got to the part about reverse engineering, I really just closed the book and I didn't actually finish the book because that was exactly what I needed to help me define everything, right? And then I went to the next level. So then when I'm looking for the next book, is to figure out which book can help me on this new level that I'm on now, right? And so we want to really pay attention to the books we choose based on our intentions and the problems that it can solve for us, not based on what everyone else is reading or just taking a guess like maybe this is a good book, right? So let's define what we're looking for and then find the book that has it and keep the notes. And then we just keep iterating and do it all over again. But books definitely have a lot of answers, but don't be afraid to take that answer and never pick up the book again. Okay, so I'll see you in the next lesson. And if you have any questions, just reach out and we'll discuss.